3, 2, 1. Ready? Action.
It's going to be tipped and caught. It's caught. It's caught. It's a touchdown, Western Times.
Daniel out of the pocket. He's going to try and run for it. Breaking tackle. Down. He gets popped. He lost the football.
And he scores on the last play of the game. Unbelievable. Holy guacamole. Watch this hit right here. By Dejon Anthony. He said, get that man some milk.
Don't you dare skip that channel. You are tuned in live with Talking Action.
Today was the MAC Media Day in Canton, Ohio. I was there, got to interview some coaches, some players, and just kind of wanted to kind of guide you into it before I show you the interviews, because that's what this episode is. This will be on Across the Sports World. This will be on Talking Action. This is mainly a Talking Action product, but kind of want to put it on both. I feel like it would be good both on both audio channels, and wouldn't hurt to have them both out there. The first interview that you'll see is with Miami's head coach and the coach that's the winner of the MAC championship this past year, Coach Chuck Martin. I got to interview first time I really got to sat down next to him, and we really got a chance to talk. You can kind of tell that we, I don't know if you really can tell, but we've never talked before, never interviewed before, other than a question I asked during the MAC championship game just a year ago. And he was there with Brett Gabbert and Matt Solpick. And I just talked to Coach Martin. That was a good interview. We talked a lot about recruiting, a lot about, transfers, how do you get players in Miami? How do you keep them? Kind of the managing expectations after winning a championship, and kind of, having the expectation you are the best team and you are a championship caliber team without kind of getting too excited. So that was the first interview that we did, and I'm really excited for you guys to see that one. Hopefully we get to talk to Miami more. It might be more on that later on, but hopefully we can talk to him more throughout the season. The next coach, a first-year coach for Buffalo, I wouldn't really call him a first-year coach. He has a lot of experience. Pete Lembo, his first season at Buffalo, taking over the job that Marcus Linguist did last year. Lembo was a great interview. I think it might be the longest one that we did with coaches. Again, we talked a lot about the pipeline from Buffalo to really recruiting across the country. We talked about recruiting in Pittsburgh. We talked about recruiting in Cleveland, and kind of how he has so much access because he's near to a big city, a Rust Belt grit town that has a major airport where they can go to the DMV, they can go to Florida, they can go to PA, they can go wherever because of the location, not just where the school is, just an hour away from the border of PA, probably less. So you have Erie right there down to Pittsburgh, and then you have Cleveland out there as well with the whole Northeast Ohio area. They kind of have advantage that they're in driving distance of so many different areas. So we talked to him about that a lot, and kind of the expectations he has for his team going into this season after Buffalo didn't have a great season ago. And we also talked about Lamar Sperling, who is an Akron kid. So if you're a follower of Kenni Sports and you followed our stuff before, we've been covering this kid since he was at Akron Hoban. So that's another good interview. We really get our first taste of what Pete Lembo is and what he has to say about his Buffalo Bulls. So that was interesting. We then talked to Kenni Burns, the head coach for Kent State. It was nice talking to him and catching up with him. Actually, before we did that, it was actually with Jason Candle. It's ninth season with Toledo, led them to a phenomenal season last year. Kenni Burns was after the Candle interview. Actually, he was, I think, before Lembo as well. He was our second interview. It's the second interview that you'll see. Yeah, kind of talk about what they lost, what they have, how they keep retotaling that the way that they do. What they do at Toledo is impressive, and I kind of want to explore that a little bit. And he's a soft-spoken guy. I've seen him kind of get into it as a coach. When it comes to these interviews, very soft-spoken, doesn't give too much away, but still was a good interview nonetheless. Always enjoy talking to Coach Candle and everything about Toledo. Then talked to Kenni Burns, which is the fourth interview that you'll see. Actually, the fifth interview you see, his players are before him. Kenni Burns, another good interview. He was a lot more happier, a lot more joyful, less question marks to talk about for Kent State. He knows who his playmakers are. He knows what players are here and what players are committed to Kent State. Had a lot of players stay after the year before. Everyone pretty much bolted out on him. That was good. I always like talking to Coach Burns. The second time we've talked to him, he remembered the conversations we had last time, and hopefully we get to see more of him. We'll be at the Wagon Wheel game later this year, but he was a good interview. Speaking of the good interviews with Kent State, we also got to talk to some of his players as well. Chrishon McCray, he's a redshirt sophomore from Avon, Indiana, not to get confused with Avon, Ohio, and Oliver Billotte. He's a junior defensive end. That was a good interview. We got to talk about the game a little bit with them. I tried talking about with the players because these guys play the game, man, and it was cool kind of talking to them about that. And McCray's a big part of the game. He is literally on the menu screen of one of the game modes. Got to talk to him about that. Kind of talked about the expectations for this year, how they want to get the wheel back at Kent State. And, of course, right after that, we had to interview some of their rivals as well, which would be the interview that you'll see right after that. We got to talk to some players from Akron, Bryan McCoy, linebacker, and Bennett Adler. Adler's right down the road in Lakewood, while McCoy is from Chicago. It was cool talking to them. They're both defensive players, so it was very one-sided questions. This team is going to have a defense attitude. We talked about that a lot, but they do have high expectations on the offense. Last year, offense, not as good as they wanted it to be. The year before, the offense was the better side of this team. Now, I'm interested to see what that case will be, if they will improve. We get to talk about that a little bit. We also talk about that with Coach Joe Moorhead, his third year with Akron. He's coached a head coach before. He was an offense coordinator that even the NFL wants. So Akron considers himself lucky to have Coach Moorhead. But this is a crucial year. Has to win more than 2 games. Talked about the expectations, how his team wants to win now. They think they can win now, and they are looking to prove that. How they're ignoring the rankings and everything of that nature. I'm going to send you down to an interview with Coach Chuck Martin from Miami, Ohio, then lead into Coach Candle, Coach Lembo, and then the last few interviews after that will be the 2 Kent State players, Coach Kenni Burns for Kent State, the 2 Akron players, and then follow with Joe Moorhead. Make sure to follow everything we do at Key on Sports, and I hope you enjoy these interviews.
We are here at the MAC Kickoff Event. I'm here with Miami's head coach, Coach Martin. Coach, how are you today?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good. So I got to ask, what's the mentality you and the players going into the season after winning a MAC championship game?
Yeah, it's just you're exciting. You're coming off a good year. We got a good nucleus of guys coming back, so we're excited about that. But know that this league is so even, so hard to win in this league. No one ever beats hardly ever in this league. Every team's during my 10 years has fought for MAC championship. So, and then everybody's going to gun it for you because you're the returning champs. Whether you're predicted number 1 or not, you're the returning champ. So everybody's going to have a target on you. So you're going to get a shot. And that's just normal of coming off a great season. So we're excited about that. You'd much rather be somebody trying to hunt you because that usually means you did something pretty good the year before. So we're excited to be where we're at.
So you have some of your best players returning. Obviously, the quarterback that started the MAC championship game is, I believe, no longer with he transferred out. Yeah. But you do have your star quarterback who was injured there in the middle of the season. How's it feel to have him back and some of the linebacker quarterback, knowing that you see a team like Toledo and Ohio who did get hit, some of their best players lost in the transfer portal. Is there a strategy of keeping players during this era, or is it almost just the luck of a draw of what players leave and what players go?
Yeah, I think we're all fighting to keep our best players, and in our league, it's hard because uh, they're they're recruiting the kids right off our campus. They're kids that aren't even looking to transfer are getting offered big money to transfer, and so you have to recruit your own kids every day. You always did, but now you do. And there's the strategy is just to try to convince them how they're better off staying than leaving. And yeah, there's big money out there, but that big money doesn't pay your bills when you're 30. And we always talk about making sure you stick around to get the Miami degree. We were fortunate enough to have some grad transfers that also decided to stick around. Some kids today that could have left and moved on didn't. So you have to have a good program. They have to believe in what you're doing. They have to believe that you can help them get to the next level on Sundays. And obviously, that's where the real big payday comes from.
And so, how has the university helped you guys out when trying to get players to? Because it's so different than it was 4 or 5 years ago. How has the university helped you guys to kind of get players in or get players go? Like, what's the pitch that you give guys when you want players to transfer to Miami or stay at Miami?
Well, we always tell the same thing, whether they're a high school kid or whether they're a high school kid that's going to be coming from Arizona State or coming from another school, is trying to sell who we are as a football program and how we can help. Because if they're transferring, they're looking to improve their football life and how we can help them improve their football life. And we have a lot of stories of kids that weren't successful at school, that came to our school, got developed, and now they're ready to go play in the NFL. And they weren't even playing at the previous school, but now they're going to get drafted or sign free agent contract. And then obviously Miami sells itself. We're an institution in the country. Our alums are some of the most successful alumni in the country. So we always tell them along the way, getting to become part of one of the most powerful networks in the country.
And saying, "Hey, we won the MAC championship last year." Is that a sell that works on guys, or is there a different sell that has to be had?
No, that's part of it. And again, sports used to be programs and what have you done over the course of time, and there was tradition and history. Kids today
don't care about it too much.
it's what did you do last year? Whoever won last year is hot and they're excited. So winning sells, and winning championships really sells and really helps you in recruiting. So yeah, coming off a MAC championship win, definitely. Like our next class is already looking very good, and we're recruiting them off of last year's success.
Is there a way where you still can focus on the high school kids and not get carried away? Because we've seen some programs get carried away and they only focus on transfer kids. What's the balance there for you as a coaching staff?
Yeah, I don't know that we figured it out. We try to recruit the high school kids and the portal the same way. Kids we think that fit Miami as a school, kids that we think fit our program, kids that are going to have great work ethic. And if they're a high school kid, we think they can play and help us win a MAC championship, we're going to recruit them. So the recruiting is the same. It's just how to balance the numbers is what you're talking about. I don't really know we have a great answer yet. It's kind of minute by minute, day by day. And you don't really know who you're losing, so it's hard to project. But in the past, it was easy. You have these seniors, and you better have kids coming along. You don't know who's coming and going, so it's a one-year organization, and it's a one-year organization. But we're still recruiting a lot of high school kids. We took over 20 high school kids a year ago. We've got 22 high school kids to me this year, which is probably amongst the top 5 in the country. We're still recruiting the high school level. So basis for the 2 kids we have here today are kids we took out of high school. So a lot of people aren't taking quarterbacks out of high school anymore. I got a high school.
You guys got a good one. Yeah. And a good linebacker too that you have here as well.
I'll take another one, another high school quarterback like him. Trust me.
Last question for you. I'll let you go. Obviously, everyone I've seen is putting you guys number 1. What's your message to your team of not kind of watching the polls, not watching what writer A and writer B have to say? Because a lot of players get caught up poll watching. So what do you tell your players to ensure that they don't get caught up saying, "Oh, we're number 1, we're the preseason champs"?
Yeah, the preseason stuff is fun for fans and media, and the big concern for me as a coach is what you just said. That's a big who cares? We weren't number 1 preseason last year. We won the match. So again, if you'd get something for this, like if I got a bonus, this would be a big deal. I don't get a bonus for being preseason number 1. If we got 6 points in the first conference game, like, hey, if you're ranked number 1, you start off every game 3-0. Well, then it'd be a big deal. But it really means nothing other than it's a fun day and it's a kickoff to the season. But the big concern is it's not really positive. It's more of a negative. Just complacency sets in, and people think, so we did it last year, therefore we're going to do it again. Well, proof in this league is that.
I mean, look at what was it, 2 years ago? NIU was predicted one. I don't think they even made a bowl game that season when Toledo won it, and then Toledo was ranked, and you guys ended up beating them. So, do you look at that at all? Where it's like, well, the track history here is not in favor, but I'm sure you're not too worried about that.
No, I just trying to worry about playing good football. You play good football, you get a chance to win, especially in this league. You get good football every week. There's a lot of good players, a lot of good coaches. It's very even. This is a fun day for fans and media. It kind of gets us a little bit close, you know.
Camp's right around the corner.
So the negative is summer's over, and what little summer we have is gone. But yeah, no, it doesn't. But I've been on both sides. I mean, it can be done, but I'd rather be sitting here than
on the bottom,
because that means last year was a good year. Yeah,
and they think you're going to be good again this year too.
So it means we got a lot of good players. There's a lot of good that comes along with it.
Thank you,
in reality.
Coach Jason Candle of Toledo. Coach, how are you tonight? Great. How are you? How was the drive over here?
Excellent. Familiar.
You guys are used to coming over to Northeast Ohio to play different teams. What was the mentality of the offseason? Obviously, losing Daquan Finn, losing your number one running back as well. And you guys are still returning a lot. You also lost some key players that have helped you out the past few seasons.
Oh, can't coach the ones that aren't here, whether that's for graduation. And obviously, we celebrated Kenni Mitchell being drafted in the first round. Dallas can't make the Minnesota Vikings, getting picked up by the Minnesota Vikings. Judge Culpepper, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Chris McDonald with the Bucks, David Gugu with the Redskins, two other guys postseason NFL trials. So we did lose some great players. I think when you have a great culture, you have a great team, program, you have the confidence that you think you can, for lack of a better term, reload with, really talented roster. That's what's to take shape. There's a lot of work that has to be done between January 1 and August 1st. But I feel confident that we had a good off season. We got to reproduce that and have a great preseason camp and see where this thing takes us.
Now, a lot of people are still favoriting you guys to be one of the top teams to MAC. What does it say to you and your program, the mentality of your players to be able to? I mean, you guys had a historic season last year. It just didn't end the way you guys wanted to kind of continue moving this train forward.
Well, you don't come to Toledo to finish second. So, you want to be around high-achieving people that have the same, like-minded mentality and goals and aspirations that you have for yourself. And we have staff that thinks that way, and we have group of players that think that way, and but also respects and understands the work required to get to that time. So it's been fun to watch this team take shape, and as we continue on this path, and we're excited to get preseason camp started.
Again, you lose a quarterback, and I don't think I've seen a team lose their star quarterback and be so comfortable with the guy that's going to step up and take that role. What's it say about Gleason and what he's played for the wins that he contributed in? I mean, there was a game against Western Michigan where, Finn gets hurt, Gleason comes in, leads you guys to victory. What's that say to him in the team around him that he can kind of just be plugged in there and everyone has the same confidence in him as they have?
I mean, there's a learning curve for everybody when they become a first team player. Obviously, get small sample sizes that when you're young in your career, no matter what position you play, and you take those moments and you try to project what it would look like. And in his case, he played really, really well in those moments. So I think that more importantly, built confidence around him from his peers and the people in the locker room rather than the coaches. We've always had a lot of confidence in him. He's a first-class human being. He's a great student, very accountable in his actions, very responsible, and very comfortable in his own skin and how he wants to move and how he wants to lead. So we feel confident in him. We feel confident in that room as a whole. There's a bunch of other good players in that line that we didn't feel like we had to go out and grab a transfer and look for the quick fix. We feel like we've developed well, and it's time for those guys to go play and see what it looks like.
Tell me about the confidence in your defense. You talked about losing Gant. You talked about losing Mitchell and Culpepper and a few others on your defense. What's the confidence level you have on your defense and players that are stepping up and coming in to play here at Toledo?
I think there's, we have a lot of guys returning too.
Yeah.
You lose really good veteran guys in the secondary, Zach Ford, Nate Bauer, Chris McDonald, Kenni Mitchell, or guys that played a ton of football for us. And but you return to Maxon Hook, who's a pro football player someday. Return Emmanuel McNeil Warren, who, in my opinion, is a pro football player someday. I think some good transfer guys at corner. Got some good young corners that are stepped up that are already in our program, and Avery Smith, and Sear Bowers. And really excited to see what those guys do. Second level of defense, Dan Bolden's been a really good player for a really long time. And his senior year, excited what he's going to bring to the table. Darius Alexander on the defensive line, Trey Reagan on the defensive line. So, and some young guys that I think have developed in that core group, front seven. So, really excited about what that can be, and a long ways away, but very, very cautiously optimistic that we're going to have.
One thing changed with and it goes to see Gleason play. He can run. Like, he's a big physical player that can lower his shoulder. He can run. Will the playing style at all change with the offense, with a different quarterback? Again, a lot of same weapons on the outside. You have a running back that's familiar, who's stepping up once again. You have an offensive line that's more experienced this year. Is there any change in this offense, or is it kind of going to be the same thing that we've seen before?
I think that each team takes a different shape. All three phases, offensively, defensively, and the kicking game. So I think that's a work in progress. We feel comfortable in Tucker's ability and really confident in the playmakers around him and what we can do to try to make sure that we highlight their abilities and put the ball in their hands to do really, really good things. And we'll always start there with what their players can do and build from there.
What's your pitch to players when you're recruiting them to Toledo, whether it's just a high school kid or it's a transfer? Is there any difference there, or it's the same pitch?
I don't think there's a difference. I think that we've established a program and developed a culture and a mentality that allows you to be the best version of yourself. We want really good men and guys that understand that there's character's more important than your image and what you look like. So guys that really understand the value of free education, and guys at the end of the day that really love football. I think in today's world, there's so many examples of guys that love other things that don't really love the work that's required to be successful. So we start there, and we want guys that believe in those things, and guys that want to do a really good job being the best version of themselves. And if they can take a selfish approach in their development, I'm pretty confident we're going to put a good product out there.
Last question, I'll let you go. Do you have? And I've heard you guys doing it before. Do you guys have any of your alumni that are in the NFL currently that come in and talk to the players, or ever give pitches to the players, or come in before games, hang around the locker room?
Well, I think once a rocket, always a rocket. We just say that as a catchphrase. I think that's really true. I mean, yesterday I'm in there and Dallas Camp's walking through the door to lift with the guys. Quinyon Mitchell was there also running with the guys. See guys like Tyson Anderson and Deontay Johnson and Cleveland. These guys are successful in their professional careers coming back, and we want it to be a place where they feel comfortable to be around, and and guys that have their experiences through their path to the NFL and their path through draft process, or maybe some of the mistakes that they've made. Like we've got Nate Cole's a former player of mine who's on my staff. Trayvon Hester was on our staff last year as a former player. AJ Harrison's on our staff as a former player. Like we got guys that have come back coach for us, guys come back work in support roles. We want it to be a place where they've helped build this program the way it is. I always want to try to have that.
Thank you, Coach. I'm with Coach Lembo, correct? That's how I pronounce it, right?
Yep.
Okay. Of Buffalo. We're here at the MAC Media Day. Coach, how are you today?
Doing great. Good to be here.
So how excited are you to be in the Buffalo market and taking over this program?
Yeah, it's a very humbling opportunity. Very grateful to be there. And I can tell you after the first just about 6 months now, every day I'm really more and more thankful because it's just a wonderful area, great people. We've inherited a wonderful group of players who are very dedicated, high quality, high character guys that work very hard every day. And it's really just a great community feel there. And so I'm really enjoying my time. We've got a lot of hard work ahead of us. It's going to be a challenging rebuild in some ways, but when you're around good people and they want to be there and they're working hard, it makes it fun to come to work every day, and that's certainly been the case.
Now, you mentioned working hard. Buffalo's definitely known as a blue-collar, Rust Belt city. When you look at even like the Bills in Buffalo, they have that grittiness to them. Are you implementing that in that program? And if you are, how have the players taken to that type of mentality?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that we try to enjoy our time together, and there's a lot of positive energy in our building right now, but we try to go about what we do in sort of a humble, modest kind of way that I think reflects Western New York. But the other thing I've learned about Western New York is there's a lot of pride there, and there's a lot of energy there, and we have a lot going on and great entertainment, and so we want to be part of that great entertainment, right? We want to build a winner there that that community can take pride in, and we want to be a very visible part of the community. And I'm not saying that we're ever going to mirror the Bills Mafia, but in our own way, we feel like on Saturdays or playing on Tuesdays or Wednesdays or whenever the case might be, that we can put something together that people can feel special about as well.
So from what you've seen so far, again, you haven't even started your first season with the program yet, but have you noticed any challenges or any advantages of being in a bigger market like Buffalo compared to a normal college town in the MAC?
Yeah, well, obviously you have the competition from the Bills, but the fact that we have people there, I've worked in this league before and been in a town of 40,000. Now you're in a city of 400,000 with suburbs around it and upwards of 1 million people. So there's a lot of amenities there. One of which is an airport that's about 12 minutes from our campus where we can fly direct to 25, 30 different cities, which is great for recruiting. It's great when our coaches travel. It's great when those recruits come and visit us. And then if they end up at UB, the logistics for them and their parents over that 4-year experience is pretty darn good. Our school is really, really strong academically. So we've got a lot of programs that we can sell to recruits, including a top 50 business school, which is really, really attractive. And then there's a lot going on. It's a foodie city. We get big-time entertainment coming right in there to Buffalo. You have pro sports, obviously, which we've talked about before. And then there's a lot of sort of touristy things in our area as well. So when a student-athlete decides to come to UB, he's going to have a lot to do beyond just what he's doing in the classroom and on the football field for the next 4 years.
Claire, I want to talk about probably someone you haven't gotten a question of, but we're from the Cleveland market. We cover the Akron area with high school sports as well. Mar Sperling is a player I'd like to talk about. He's stayed with the program. Even before he went to Buffalo, before you were there, he had opportunities to go to even to the SEC. How big is it when you have a player like him to kind of point at other recruits, hey, this is a guy that stayed through this transition period and he's dedicated to the program? What is that kind of a focal point that you guys look at when you're trying to bring players in and keep them there? And
absolutely, guys that want to be at a place and guys who quickly have the ability to absorb what you're presenting and say, okay, I like this. I can wrap my arms around this. I can get behind this. And he's a young player. He's a guy who's overcome some adversity already with injuries and so forth. He's got a really bright future ahead of him. And when you have a nucleus of players from an area like Cleveland or Northeast Ohio, it makes it easier to go back and to try to get more players from that area. So for us, Northeast Ohio is a short drive, and you get to Buffalo and there's a lot going on and a lot to do. So it's an attractive area for us to come recruit. The quality of the high school football here is very good. Much the same can be said for Pittsburgh. 3-hour drive for us, highway the whole shot, and really good high school football. So when we look at local areas, obviously you start in your own backyard, and we've got to make sure if there are good players in Western New York that we are recruiting those guys. But right after that, it's Northeast Ohio and it's Western Pennsylvania. And we've already had a fair amount of success, even as a new staff, getting guys out of those areas.
Now, I'm a Western PA kid myself. I live in Cleveland now. I play D3 football there. So everything you're saying, it's It's making
Music to your
music,
ears.
music
I
to
love
my
it.
ears.
I love it.
I do want to talk about the recruiting, but I want to question about Lamar. So he again, he didn't play a lot last year. That was before you were there. Should we plan on seeing him on the field this year?
Oh, absolutely. And we've got right now, if you said to me, what is our running back situation? I would say it's a committee.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great group of kids. I expect that those guys are not only going to contribute on offense, but also on special teams. We just had that conversation as a staff earlier this week about the depth in that room and the diversity of that room. We've got a lot of different shapes and sizes, which I think a good running back room has that. And so I expect all of those guys to contribute, and I expect several of them to be travel squad guys that are helping us in multiple phases of the game.
Now, what's about the recruiting trail for you guys? Obviously, people don't realize how good football is in the Buffalo area. I know a lot of guys that came out of that area, played multiple different divisions. Those are tough kids that come out of the high school football there. Obviously, you have that whole area of Western PA from Pittsburgh all the way up to Erie.
Right.
And then you have, all of Cleveland. How much of an advantage does it give you, your recruiting staff, just the university in general, when that pipeline is right there for you guys?
Yeah, so you love to have fertile recruiting areas that you can easily drive to, and you just acknowledge that. And we certainly wasted no time getting out and hitting those areas and encouraging those players to come to campus. So even though I got hired very late in the process, I'm very pleased with our 2025 class right now. Obviously, I can't talk about any of those guys specifically, but I'm very pleased with the quality of the guys that we've gotten verbal commitments from, including several from Ohio and Western PA that are guys that could drive back and forth and came to see us multiple times. And then from there, the other nice thing is having that major airport 12 minutes from campus. If it's the DMV, we've got direct flights to BWI and to Reagan and to Dulles. So the kids from that area can jump on a flight and be on our campus in an hour. The New York airports, Boston, Newark, even down to Charlotte and Atlanta, those are really short direct flights from Buffalo. So for us to hit sort of that eastern seaboard, which is where the vast majority of my coaching experience is and recruiting experience is from, it's really a good fit for us.
So what area, and we've got a few more for you, we'll let you go before the commissioner speaks. What are some, now we talked about the pipeline that you have just right next to you guys. What are some states that are far away that you want to take advantage of, if you're willing to talk about that?
Sure. Well, absolutely. And I think I mentioned
touched it a little bit.
Yeah. For example, the DC area, you've got one of the most fertile areas in the country for Division I football recruits. You've got direct flights into 3 airports, and because of the proximity of a lot of those schools, you can go in there in a few days and hit a lot of great programs. And for us, again, it's relatively easy to get those kids up to campus. I spent a good bit of my career in North Carolina and South Carolina, and the Charlotte area has absolutely exploded in terms of population and has really good football. I've been recruiting in Atlanta since the late 90s as a coach. So Atlanta is certainly an area that we go to and want to continue to go to. And then let's face it, there's always going to be great players in Florida, and you might have to be a little bit more selective about where you go down there because it's such a huge state. But our accessibility to all of those places up and down the East Coast with direct flights makes it easy for us to get to those places and easy to bring guys in.
And this is my last question for you, what are the expectations that you have on your players for this program to go? Obviously, you're taking over a program. Sometimes it takes a year or two to kind of get things settled and get things going. And we've seen teams that had quicker turnarounds than we expected here in this conference. Even Western Michigan was nearly eligible off of a quick coach transition. What are the expectations that you have on your coaching staff and the players in the program?
Yeah. To reach your potential, whatever that potential may be. And in my 15 years as a head coach, I can tell you there were years, I can remember a year vividly that we won 8 games at Lehigh and another year that we won 8 games at Elon. And I was disappointed because I didn't feel like we reached our potential. And then I can remember a year at Ball State that we won 6 games and a year at Elon that we won 6 games. And I was super fulfilled after those seasons were over because I felt like based on what we had, those circumstances, the way that year played out, we really were able to maximize our potential as a team. So I'm not quite sure what this team's potential is yet, but we'll be able to look back in December and say, all right, did we fulfill our goals? Did we maximize our potential? And I do agree with something you said. I think it is absolutely dead accurate. And that is, this is a different age in college football. You're no longer building a program over 4 or 5 years anymore. So if you have the right chemistry, if you have the right leadership, if you have the right mix of talent, if things play out a certain way relative to your team staying healthy, if your schedule lays out well for you, you can have quick turnarounds now. So I'm not assuming anything. Like, I don't think about this as a rebuild. I think about this as what can we do in this year that we have to maximize the potential of this football team.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach. I'm with Coach Kenni Burns of Kent State, second year. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Awesome. Love this time of year, right when the season's about to start off, right?
It's almost, and I think anyone who's played football, you get this feeling right before camp.
Oh, yeah.
And now I don't play anymore, right? I did play D3 ball. But now when we get here, it's like, I don't get that feeling that camp's starting. So this is my feeling. Oh, we're about to head into football camp.
Right.
Football camp. Now, that being mentioned, how are you and your team feeling going to camp this year?
Better than last year.
Yeah.
At least I know the roster now.
Last year, I think we asked you about every single position, about quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and now a lot of those, there's some answers.
Yeah.
What are some of those answers?
You know what? The biggest thing I've learned is that we did a great job of retaining our roster. I think that's the biggest thing in college football now is can you retain the guys and bring them back? We did do that. So now we're bigger, we're faster, we're stronger. The season ended. I kind of told myself there's 3 things that I really got to get taken care of. First was alignment. We got to get everybody aligned with each other and make sure that we're all doing it the right way. I think the first year alignment's hard because you didn't pick these guys, they didn't pick you. But now they all been through it a year and they decided to come back and not happen before. So they picked it now. So getting everyone aligned. The second thing we talked about was really transforming our bodies. I didn't feel like we looked like a championship team. You know, we were big enough, I didn't think we were fast enough, so we really got a new strength coach to come in and kind of revamp our bodies. And the third thing was just mental and emotional development. We have a very young team, so mentally and emotionally, they struggled to stay, into games, and when adversity hit, they didn't handle it really well. So we really dove into that this year, and I think more than anything, we got a mature football team.
Now, when you came in, you guys lost a lot of wide receivers from the year prior.
Yeah.
This year, you keep one of your top wide receivers. And one cool thing I thought, one of his pictures is in the video game. Thought that was cool. But I saw him tweet about that.
Yeah.
But how is it important of keeping McCray on this roster and having one weapon that you guys can rely on? I mean,
Sure.
you guys have a lot of weapons. He's the main one that made a huge impact last year.
Yeah, I've been so impressed with Chrishon and his family. Not just him, his dad and mom are just really good people. I mean, he had everyone that you can think of knocking on his door. I mean, he's a young guy who's an all-conference player. He's got tons of time to develop even a better player. And he believes in people. And he came back to Kent State because it was a place that felt like home, and there were really good people there that are going to take care of him. And that, to me, meant a lot. And I think when he did it, I think a lot of people followed, to make sure that Chrishon believes in this place, and I believe in this place too. It was a really big thing for our coaching staff is how do we get Chrishon to stay here and help us get this thing. And it didn't take long because he knew what he wanted to do. And I think it helped that we saw other people in our league get drafted. He believes that you can get there from the MAC, which is awesome too. So he's a big piece, but not just him. You got Luke Floria coming back too, who's an all-conference receiver. I think he's 13 all-conference. You got Kai Thomas at running back, who I had at Minnesota with me as a freshman. So there's some talent back there now, and Gavin Garcia. I think the biggest thing now is finding a trigger man. We've got a couple good options. Where last year I feel like we had very good options. This year we do. It's exciting.
So, do you have any expectations of who will be quarterback week 1? I asked you that last year. I got ask you again.
I got a good idea. I think I got a good idea, but it's pretty open. I think it's really between two guys. Tommy is the guy who played last year for us, and he did a lot of development this offseason.
He had some bright moments last year.
Bright moments last year. He still was young.
Oh, yeah.
He's a year better now. I thought he had a really good spring. Devin Kirkman was a guy that didn't practice this spring. He had a little bit of surgery, but I saw him become really mature. He got to sit back and take kind of a coach's point of view and really get into it a little bit, and had a great summer. So I'm just interested to see how they compete this offseason together.
Now, we talked about retaining players, how big that was for you. I noticed that a lot of the players posted a bunch of pictures saying, I'm staying, I'm committed. And it was all around the same time of each other.
Yeah.
Now, was that a planned thing with the players, or that just so happened that they all said that they were staying at the same time?
You know what? No, it was a planned thing by them. And they wanted to show their commitment to Kid State and to let our fan base know and let people know, our players know that, like, and schools that were coaching them, like, listen, we're staying here. And I thought it was really cool by them. And one that started with, I think, Chrishon, and then a lot of guys followed it, said they wanted to do it, and I was all for it.
How's the recruiting trail been after last year?
It's been awesome. That's been the biggest probably excitement after going 1-11. We got a top 10 recruiting class right now. I think it's 1 or 2 in the MAC. Most polls. Last year we signed a top recruiting class, so we've recruited really, really well. I'm not an offensive coordinator. I'm not a defensive coordinator, but I am known for recruiting. I take pride in that, getting to know people, getting around families, and really selling the vision of this program. I think that's how I hope this thing grows. So we're doing really well in recruiting. I think the future looks great.
What are expectations you have on this roster for this season? A lot of people are picking you last in the MAC.
Yeah,
what are your expectations on your team? And I talked to other coaches, even the teams that are on the top, they're ignoring that. And I'm sure you and your team are. You guys have expectations on yourself. What are those expectations?
You know, just to get better. I know that's a cliche coach to speak, but we really are looking at that. I believe championships are won in the juniors and seniors. You got to get guys to develop in the system. We did something that's really unique. When we came as a head coach, a lot of guys are going like, I'm getting portal kids. We actually signed more high school kids. So our roster is really, really young. I want to develop guys from freshman year to junior, senior year, and see what happens there. They might transfer out after that, but like get them to that point where they come through our system. So with that being said, we're going to be a young team again. We're going to be a team that thinks 60% of our roster is freshmen and sophomores. So still a really, really young roster that we got to develop. So to me, every game we're consistently getting better. We're having championship habits, championship practice. That leads to championships and games. So that's what I'm looking for as a head coach.
What is your team's identity? I'm sure last year that had to been hard to answer. This year you're able to kind of put embed your culture a little bit more. You have players that are completely bought into you and your program, into the university. So what is it for this year?
It's tough, physical, and together. We want to play tough football. When people watch us, are they going to say that's a tough football team? Is that a physical football team that can dominate the line of scrimmage? I still believe champions are one of the line of scrimmage. And then are they playing connected? Because I think a connected team's a dangerous team. When you're playing for each other. Last year we played with each other. We didn't really play for the guy next to us. I felt like we had all these individual goals, team. And this year we've identified that and we're starting to get to that. But I saw spring ball.
Last question. What are some things that you learned while you were at Minnesota coaching there? Have you taken here at Kent State? And what have you been able to apply? And what are some of the differences as well? I know a Big Ten school, MAC, is a huge difference. What are some of the cultural differences in two Midwestern areas?
Yeah, the great thing for me, I was at Minnesota with PJ Floyd, and we built it from the ground up. So I got to see the first 3 years how to do it. Then we obviously got it rolling. But then I was also at Western Michigan at the end when they were 13-0 in the Cotton Bowl. So I've seen how it's been built and how it stays. And the one thing is, the first year struggles because you're trying to set culture and create and stay the course. He taught me one thing that I think is really important: never sacrifice what you want down the road for what you want right now. Like just because I want to win right now, it's more important that we have a sustainable culture in the future. And I think the biggest thing I've learned is to stay the course. At Minnesota, stay the course. And no different than Kent State. I think resources are resources. I think some places have more, some places have less. I think it's about being resourceful, what you have. And we're trying to do that at Kent State.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach. Good luck this year.
Appreciate it, man. Go Flashes, can't get.
All right. First of all, how are you guys doing today? Getting all these questions. So how's the day been?
Not bad. It's been pretty smooth, honestly, for us. I mean, obviously it's kind of slow with and interviews and stuff like that. But it's pretty good.
There's a lot of downtime.
Yeah.
Now you're having a moment because I'm sure when you loaded up the video game, and I'm going to ask more about that. 'Cause it's such a huge topic of conversation. And you go to make a Road to Glory guy, you're right there. So how? And I saw your TikTok about it. How did you know that you were going to have like a still shot of you in that game, or what was that like when you loaded that up? Like, did someone tell you, or was it just something you found yourself?
So my friend pre-ordered the game, so he sent it to me. I didn't really think anything of it, and then so I saw it myself, and then once I saw it, I was like, "Whoa, this is like legit." So it was.
Now, when people pick that character, that the 2-star recruit, it's the most difficult thing in the game. I don't know if you've tried it yet, but when people are now going to view your image as the most difficult route in a video game. That being said, have you guys played it? Have you guys seen your characters or the versions of you in it? How cool does it have to be?
It's pretty surreal, to be honest with you. Like, whenever I heard it was coming out, like, first of all, it was my favorite game growing up. We used to play it all the time. But, like, it never really clicked until I got to play it for the first time. And it's like, when you're playing as yourself, like in a video game, it's as close as you can get to the feeling of playing in a real game. So, like, to be in your favorite video game as a kid and to sit back and really think about that millions of kids are playing with you, it's pretty awesome. This thing that's pretty cool. Like, I was like, growing up, you were really wrong character, like, just like you, blah, 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 and that is actually in the game. And other people playing with it. It's just like,
Now, do they get you guys right with the modeling of the character? Does it look like you, or does it not?
everything's good with me except they made me look like super fat. Yeah, which is so funny. Mine's pretty good. They did me right with the blonde dreads. Got pretty close.
Now, when you saw your character, you're like, I'm not that big.
It was just funny because I knew it was going to be like that from the old games and all the games prior, playing with like defensive tackles. That's how it always is. But it's just been this ongoing joke between me and my buddies, so it's funny to see.
And I'm sure you joke with the offensive linemen because they probably look insanely different than they do in real life. So why? A lot of you guys stayed after last season. A lot of you would bail on a program losing it. Why did you guys stay? Why was it important to stay? And what do you guys see from this program? That's a lot of questions.
For me, it was just the belief in not only myself, this program, but our head coach as well, knowing that me and him had a really good relationship going into it. And then there was some difficulty midway through, losing my D-line coach, who I was super close with. Ended up getting Coach Tierlink, who's an amazing guy as well. So I've built good connections with both my head coach and my D-line coach, and it made the decision a lot easier for me, along with the people that I'm playing with around me. Always having a good, tight group there as well. For me, it was just knowing that we were a very young team last year. Known in a way, and I feel like just trusting the process, believing in what brings on, having a year to build our young team and mature more as a full team together.
What's the motivation going into this season? I know that you guys have to have fun after the wagon wheel game. You know, you've been walking by their table and seeing the wheel on it. What were the feelings after that game? And what has kind of been the motivation after that as well, going into the season and wanting to bring the wheel back?
I would say it was just kind of cherry on top of the season. It was just kind of how things were going, super frustrating, everything like that. So coming into this offseason, just kind of had to put the blinders up, put our heads down and get to work. And that's what our main focus has been, is just putting everything out there in the offseason and grinding every single day. Let the work show what we can do. Basically just not taking any plays for granted, not knowing which play can be. I got season in. So really just going out there, living all out there. It's going to matter. And you can decide.
Now, there was a lot of talk on social media when Kenny showed you guys. We also scored a lot. And I played not like you guys, but I played D3 ball, and we did the same thing when we lost Mark. And did you guys all have shirts like that? And if so, is that when you look at that record, record on that shirt? Is that just motivation? Why you're in the gym every day? Why you're spending extra hours on the field with each other?
He was the only one that wore the shirt, but it was really just
Was it flashing?
There was stuff everywhere, and it was just really a reminder of like why we're doing this, why we're.
Especially for you guys. Someone is just now following the Kent State Women's National. What do they need to know about you two, your team, and this program going on forward?
Pretty much, we're going to do everything together as a unit. We're a team that's been, it's in our logo, Kent Grit. Like it's a gritty program, a lot of hard work put into this. Everybody's been bonded through it together. Now, coming from a young team, developing into more of an older squad, we're a really tight group, and put everything out there, every snap, every down.
Unless we're a very hungry team and get out there and goal. We're at the MAC Media Day, our second player interview. We just interviewed the Kent players. Now, of course, now we have to interview the Akron players. How are you guys doing today? How's the Media Day been treating you guys?
It's been awesome. Mac's treating us great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm really enjoying being here. It's an exciting experience.
Is it your first time at the Hall of Fame?
This would be my second.
Second. So yesterday, did you guys do the whole tour of everything? How was that?
Literally surrounded by greatness.
No, has anyone like walking around like, yeah, I'm going to be in this Hall of Fame one day?
The Super Bowl rings, they just did something to me. I'm like, oh my God, look at those things. Beautiful.
What about the Lombardi? Did you guys get excited seeing the Lombardi? It's not cooler than the MAC Trophy. So speaking of that, what are the expectations for you guys? You guys, again, 2-win season again last year. But I think it was if the games that you went into overtime with, counting with the games you had first half leads, you guys would have had 7 wins.
Yes.
So what was the emphasis of that going into throughout spring and now that you're going to fall camp? Like, what's the emphasis on finishing games to finishing?
Really focusing on the little details. It's those little details that are going to push us over the hump. Finishing those games and being able to.
I can agree to that. The really one thing we focus on are the little details. Most of all, everything boils down to wins and losses. Almost doing it right, barely doing it right. Kind of getting it right. It's not enough anymore. It's not enough just to be almost. You have to do it, execute, understand the details, understand your technique, and execute so you can win.
Is there pressure to deliver this year compared to previous seasons?
I wouldn't say there was any more pressure than previous seasons. But I think there's definitely more of a need to on this team. We are all itching, and we absolutely need to win.
Kind of feels like when you shake a soda can, it's ready to pop. And speaking of the pressure, we love the pressure. I feel like with the way this team has grown, we're going to thrive in that pressure. We want that pressure to win, honestly, because it drives us. Nothing's better than that's what this sport is all about. Everything's on the line. What do you think?
So you guys won the wheel for the first time 4 or 5 years. This year, opportunity to retain it again. What was that feeling like getting the wheel in the fashion that you guys did? Because that was, come back there at the end of the game. The crowd that was there was really into it. And I was right in the end zone where you guys scored at the end. They were going ballistic right behind me. I edit a lot of stuff that they were saying. So what's kind of the attitude on retaining that? And kind of not getting too excited at it. Making sure you guys keep it to yourself.
We practice and we lift and we work out every week. That we must keep that. think there's a single person on our team that on that field to get that win.
I can agree with that. Everybody understands the mission. It's becoming less of a goal, more of a mission. Like it has to be. It's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's a need. It's a need. It's a need for the community. It's a need for us.
So most teams bring to the MAC Kickoff Event, they bring an offensive player. You guys, linebacker. Does that explain like the attitude that this team's going to be defense first? You guys had a lot of moments last year on defense that kind of helped you guys out a lot and put yourselves in the game. You two made a lot of plays. Nunley made a lot of plays as well, especially I guess it was Moorhead State. He made a huge play at the end. Is this a defense first attitude team, or is it just so happened that two defensive players turned it?
I don't know if it's a defensive oriented team, but I'm a defensive oriented person.
You can
so I don't even know how to answer.
You guys are defensive guys. If you want to say that, hey, defense is the best part of this team, you can go ahead and do that, because I'm sure the offense is saying the same thing.
I couldn't imagine playing. I love defense so much. I love hitting dudes.
Yeah, it's amazing. As a defense, we just love how physical we are. But probably because the offense right now, they're probably getting a lot of rest. They've been putting in a lot of work. They've been putting in a lot of work. They've been getting really, really good, really bringing it to us. So they're probably just getting some sleep right now, getting some rest. That's good for them.
They're going to need it in the camp again.
It's like camp's coming up. They're going to need all
that. What has Coach Moorhead put as the expectation for this season? Like, what are the expectations you guys put on yourself?
Just find a way to fight every second of every game.
Just understanding that, like Bennett said, every second count, every rep counts, every step you take will ultimately lead towards that win. So you can't take a moment for granted. Everybody understands that. Coach Moorhead, like you say, he put that expectation on us, but he helped us understand that every step you take will ultimately lead to the win. So you must do it.
Thank you, guys. I'm here with Coach Moorhead of the Akron Zips. Coach, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. How's the day been for you? I know I asked you before we turned the camera on, but for the folks at home, how's that? How's the day been?
It's gone smooth. Once you run through the gauntlet of SEC Media Day, everything else kind of pales in comparison. So it's been a good smooth day.
I'm sure this is a lot more relaxed than the SEC Media Day interview.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
How's the offseason been on kind of shoring up your roster and getting players healthy and seeing what you have going into the fall?
It's been good. We break the season down into 5 phases. So, winter workouts, followed by spring ball, and summer workouts, which we're in that phase right now, phase 3, then fall camp, and then the season. So, I think kids have done a really good job, getting bigger, faster, and stronger. We had some time to meet with them before we left the staff on vacation. And then next week we went back with them, and they've been doing things on their own in terms of 7-on-7s and player-led practices. So I think everyone probably feels the same way. Optimistic in the summer, and we'll find out more about the team when we start camp on the 31st.
I have to ask, you have 2 quarterbacks with starting potential going into camp. Is that right now written in pen, or is it pencil right now?
Every position's in pencil. But, with Ben coming in from college, those guys incredibly competitive throughout the first spring ball. It's 28 quarterback. Well, when it's time, it's time. Maybe it's first week, maybe it's second week, maybe it's right before the first game. So we continue to allow these guys to.
You brought 2 defensive players here today. Most teams bring an offensive defensive player, and you do have a lot of really good players returning on defense. Do you expect your defense to really be the strong part of this team and to kind of keep you guys in games? Which they did last year too, but this year they're a year older, more veterans on the squad now.
Well, I think that's a good observation. I think year one, even though we have made improvements, definitely took a step back from offense last year. Particularly critical positions, and we got through the portal. So hopefully we're able to play more like we did on offense year one and improve again on defense 2 to 3 and put it all together.
Last year, even before DJ Irons got hurt, you guys could have possibly had, I think it was around 6 or 7 wins if you count the first half leads and the overtime games that you guys were in. What's been the emphasis on finishing games going into the season? I know last year we talked about the same topic at this meeting. So what have you guys learned as the coaching staff, and what have the players learned as well when it comes to having a good second half and finishing in overtime?
Yeah, that we got to find a way to win one-score games in the fourth quarter. I mean, ostensibly took over a program that was completely not competitive, and in 2 years we've had 10 games we've lost by a touchdown or less, 5 of them by a field goal or less, or in overtime. So the time for talking about being competitive, which we've accomplished, is now taking a back seat until we got to find a way to win it. So we've done as much as we can from a constructive standpoint, putting them in competitive situations, particularly as it pertains to the fourth quarter of the game. I think a lot of that will hopefully translate. Part of that is you got to find a way to make those plays in the game. It helps you prepare, but it's different than the pressure guy.
Now, I asked your players that are here about this as well. You guys win the wheel. I know that was a big accomplishment for you and your staff and your team. What was the staff telling the players on the mindset of keeping it, and not to kind of take a back seat with relaxing that, hey, we have the wheel, things are fine?
Yeah, I mean, we'll address that when we get to that week of the season. But certainly, anytime you have a great rivalry like we have with Kent State, that's characterized by our proximity, a bunch of players recruited by both schools, and certainly passion from the local fan bases that it's going to have a significant level of importance. So, when we get to that week, our kids, hopefully they remember the feeling of running across the field. No one on the team had done it, and it hadn't been done in quite some time. So,
and those fans that didn't see it for a few years before that too.
It had the PC alternative, that's for sure.
Was it extra sweet that you got to win it at home and on national television as well? I mean, my entire feed for a week was you guys winning the wheel. So how was that winning that on national television, that spotlight?
It was great. Spend a lot of time talking. Devote a period of practice specifically to that every single day. And my first time through here, I think we were 4-1 in that game. And I said, college football is awesome. College football is
last question. Obviously the ranking came out here today, and obviously doesn't favor you guys. What are your expectations on your team going into the season?
I mean, being honest, the preseason bowl is obviously a combination of what was achieved last year, what people forecasting going forward, and certainly nutrition being important for every team. So that's probably where they deserve to be. Unfortunately, preseason bowls don't dictate the outcome of games during the course of the season. You heard the commissioner mention that 41% of the games in this conference since 2014 have been decided by a touchdown or less. And it's the league, I think, in Division I football that has the most parity. So I'm not going to pin that up on a board and say, hey, look, they put this up. That's great for about a minute and a half, and then forget about it. And you fall back on the things that matter, how well you prepare, how hard you play, the level of execution. So does it suck to be picked 11th? Yeah, you'd rather be picked first at the end of the day. The poll isn't going to dictate.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
Great shooting.